Welcome everybody to another episode of Unhacked. And guys, I got caught with my pants down here. What episode number is this? Is it 10? Does that
10.
sound right? 10, okay. Well, listen, I'm sitting here with two of my best friends, Bryan and Mario. Bryan, tell us a little bit about Canada, and Mario, tell us a little bit about, I don't know, where are you from, Boston or Massachusetts or something, right? Where are you at?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm from New Jersey.
I mean, that's all the same thing. Bryan, you go first, and hopefully everybody will forget what I just said to Mario. And
Sure.
Mario, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, Bryan Lachapelle with B4 Networks out of Ontario, Canada. You know, where it's a little bit on the chilly side most days, providing computer support to local business and trying to make everybody's business a little bit better every day.
Mario?
All right. And I'm Mario Zaki with Mazteck. We are located in North Jersey, right outside of Manhattan. A little further than Boston, but you know we can still drive out there. And we service small businesses, just like Bryan mentioned. Try to keep them safe.
All right, and I'm Justin Shelly with Phoenix IT Advisors, formerly Master Computing. And I've got clients in Texas and Nevada. I'm not going to take the time to explain why I'm so separated geographically, but that's what I am up to. All right, guys, we're going to break down another breach. That's kind of what we're doing on this show. We pick one breach per week and we talk about it. We try to learn from it. I think we all share a similar frustration that this information is tightly contained. It's embarrassing. We humiliate people over it. We shame them over it instead of sharing and getting better like the bad guys do. We all sit here and get worried about being embarrassed. So we're trying to crack through that the best we can. And come out with a little bit more information, come out a little bit smarter, a little bit more prepared to fight this battle that just seemingly is never going to end. So that said, we're going to talk about HPE, Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Is that what the E stands for?
The Enterprise.
Yeah, so they got hit. And I'll tell you, I'm going to kind of, maybe a spoiler alert, the thing that was the most interesting to me about this is usually when we talk about these breaches, the financial impact is devastating. At least right now, HP is saying it's not. So that'll be a little bit different this time around. But let's just jump right in. We're going to talk about, we start off with the impact, and then we're going to talk about what happened and why, and we'll wrap up with what we can learn from it, how we can do better. So Mario, you go first this time. What was one of the key impacts that, you know, how did it impact HP, their employees, their clients? What do you got?
So from the information that they provided, it seemed like they were able to get into their 365 system, including SharePoint, and extract data. And it seemed like, again, the information, they're keeping it on tight wraps, that they didn't tell us exactly what they extracted, but it does seem like they targeted a specific group within the organization.
Okay. Specific group. The way I read, I love the way they write this in the articles, that the hackers targeted, quote, small percentage of HPE mailboxes. Bryan, what can you tell us about that?
Those small mailboxes were apparently used by their staff that is responsible for cybersecurity and their go-to-market business segment. But it's low impact, Justin. Low impact.
Right. I mean, that's what again, back to my first point, right? Like, we always want to minimize this. Somehow the victims of this type of crime are the ones that are shamed and attacked, like, you know, socially attacked. It's weird. So yeah, they're minimizing it. I'm here to tell you, if my cybersecurity expert, or what, he's the one that got targeted and the one that data was exfiltrated from, I don't know that I'd be downplaying it. Maybe publicly, but certainly not internally. So this seems to me is maybe a bigger deal than they're making it out to be. But
yeah, but at the same time, I'm really impressed with some of the information that came out. It looks like, following the incident, that they immediately brought in a third-party external cybersecurity team to come and investigate, which is telling, because I mean, HP is themselves a huge computing company, and you'd you'd think that they'd have internal staff, but I'm actually happy that they brought in external cybersecurity experts to investigate, because it means that they may actually get to the root cause and figure out how it happened, and nobody's going to shove it under a rug. And the other really impressive part was that they immediately activated their response process. So, AKA incident response plan, which they had, which is also fantastic, because most organizations don't. I mean, it's kind of expected with a publicly traded company like HP that they'll have an incident response plan, but the fact that they had it and were able to implement it right away and able to eradicate it very quickly says a lot about having a plan in the first place.
Yeah, it does. One of the things that I get a lot of times, I've probably talked about this before, I'll talk about it again. I get a lot of resistance because our target audience is smaller businesses, right? We are not working with the HPs of the world. And one of the pushback points that I get is, A, we don't have the budget of these big guys. And B, if these big guys are still getting hit, what hope do I have? But I'm not speaking to HP right now. But I am telling you that I know of many cases where these large organizations, government organizations, fall way below industry standards, best practices. They're not doing the things that they're supposed to do, and or they don't have the internal staff to do this. Now, HP might, it can just be a PR move to bring in somebody else, bring in a third party. Maybe not even a PR move, that's a smart move. You should always have another set of eyes. They might have internal staff, they might not, I don't know. But look, to your point, Brian, it is smart that they bring in another set of eyes. I think we should all do that. You guys, we do that for ourselves, for our clients. And I believe everybody should do that. So, okay, good point there. Mario, did we miss anything?
No, I think I did see that, I don't want to mention the name, but it seemed like it was a similar group that targeted the 2020 breach, the SolarWinds.
Right.
And which means that, when they went after the cybersecurity department of HP, is that they were trying to make this a mass-wide thing. They were trying to target their customers, and encrypt. It could be thousands of other users or companies that could have. It could have been a bigger problem than just goes beyond HP. It could have been their customers as well. But just like Bryan said, they did pull the trigger, in a very quick manner to isolate the incident. So kudos to them.
And just for clarification, what you're talking about is called a supply chain attack, right? Where somebody downhill in the supply chain can be targeted, but indirectly. They go after levels above them. SolarWind is that example, right? They hit companies above the ones they were actually targeting. It's way harder for me to detect my vendors getting breached than it is for me to detect my own client, my own self getting breached. So yeah, this is, and we're going to kind of pivot. We'll go into what kind of an attack was it? How did it occur? At least as far as we can determine. And these are the kinds that really scare me because, this was nation state sponsored. As far as we know, this is, the Russian government backed this. That's what's terrifying. And that is why in our country, we go after the victims because we can't get to the criminals, to the perpetrators. They're governments, unless we're going to say we can't get to them.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Just to add to that, when a lot of customers and I have a conversation with them, they're like, why would they be going after us? Like we're just small fries, we're small potatoes. The reality is especially with nation state sponsored groups, they don't care who you are. They just want to destabilize the entire Western world and make it difficult on us. And if they can do that by taking down whatever businesses they can and causing chaos and havoc, they're happy. Mission accomplished for them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can also add on to that, this isn't one or two groups, in Russia. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different groups, some large, some small. And the smaller ones sometimes are, they're going to go after the smaller companies, the ones that they can, cause a problem or try to encrypt them or try to get into their 365, and they move up the chain over there, and, the better you get, the more, you're able to go after the bigger groups. But it's the smaller ones that are targeted, all the time. You just don't see them on the news. You
That's
can't
the
just
problem.
Right.
but it's happening. It's happening on a daily basis that these little guys are getting breached, but they're also
got a
not
question.
announcing it to people.
For you cybersecurity experts, if you were to go audit yourselves or any one of your clients, what is the likelihood that you are in the middle right now of some sort of a targeted attack? Pull logs, pull firewall logs, pull server logs, pull, whatever you've got. What is the likelihood that there is some sort of an attempt to crack into your security right now?
24/7, 365. I mean, if
100%.
you were to take an unprotected, computer system and put it directly on the internet, it would be breached within minutes. There's constantly scans that are happening on every single, and I won't get too technical, every single address out on the internet constantly, and there's thousands of people doing it, hundreds of thousands of people. And so, within a matter of minutes of a new device being put online, it's already having attempted breaches of all sorts of known loopholes and known bugs. It just happens to be that most of us already have these protections in place and our firewalls are blocking them. But if you don't.
Yeah, so 2 points on that. One, anybody that says I'm too small, I don't have anything that they're after, well, I can show you any given minute of any given day that you are currently under attack.
Correct.
And then number two, you do have something they want. If you have a bank account, if you have $1 to your name, you've got something they want. So quit thinking that your data, your client list, all this other stuff, or you move to the cloud or whatever, and that's protecting you. They're after your money. And yes,
Even
to
if they're
destabilize and whatever, but
even if they're not after your money, Justin, they'll be more than happy just to use you as a springboard to get to other people. And
True.
once they infiltrate your
Exactly.
computer system, now the traffic is coming from North America instead of coming from
less
another
protected.
country. And so, they're just bouncing off of you to get to other people. So
Yeah.
Well, also not to mention that a large amount of the attacks are coming in right now through email, and phishing emails and stuff like that. They're essentially one click away from being able to get in and do what they want. If they click, if a user clicks on one thing, they will give them the ability to get into either their network or to their Microsoft 365 accounts, and then they're able to do a million different things now. So to answer your question, I mean, it's beyond, as every time you get an email, check your junk mail folder, check your spam folder. Half of those that are in there are attacks, and it only takes one, email to actually get through and somebody to click on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I derailed this a little bit. Let's go back to HP. Let's talk about what happened to them, how it happened. And I think I went to Bryan last time. So Mario, tell me just a little bit about what type of an attack was it, how'd they get in?
So it did seem that they were able to get in because they found an account. Well, they did get compromised twice, and the first breach seemed to have been related, the second breach was related to the first breach. But from what the information that they released, it seemed like there was an account that didn't have two-factor authentication enabled.
Okay. And again, that's something we don't know absolutely, but it is theorized.
Well, it's theorized, but very good insight went into it, or discovery went into it. The hackers used essentially what is a password spray attack to compromise a system. And so the only way to do that and be successful at it is if, in my books anyways, is if 2FA wasn't enabled on the account. And maybe they had inside sources, maybe they were able to get around it another way, but it does look very, very highly likely that it was a, when we say password spray attack, we mean they're just trying random passwords over and over and over again on an account, and they happen to guess the right password. So
well, okay, so I'm going to stop you there. That's a brute force, right?
Okay.
So a spray attack, I had to Google this, I will confess, is where they take the same password and hit it on many accounts before they move. So this comes back to the old advice of don't use your same password on multiple sites.
Gotcha. Yeah. See,
don't share passwords among users, which, God damn it, all of my clients do it.
Yeah.
They have the same user account for everybody. Like, can't do that. Anyways.
Yeah, if you're a dentist and your password's teeth, you're not being clever.
Or password 123 or whatever, QWERTY, QWERTY. These are still some of the most common passwords out there.
Password 1, welcome 1.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, I
Okay.
see it. I see it, all the time, and I made sure like my guys don't do this. But sometimes when you're onboarding a new employee and you want to kind of just get them in, you'll set up a simple password, and you're supposed to check off the box that says, have the user change it after the first login. But if they missed that, or they didn't do it once, that password stays in. And I want to say 99% of users do not, like new employees will not go in there and change the password. So they'll just
keep
keep
they don't
it
know
in.
how. It's a new system. They're learning everything. That's the last thing on their mind is how to go in and change a password. Yeah. No, I like randomized passwords. And then you can force them to change or not. It doesn't matter at that point. Now they will, because you've given them such a stupid ass password. They don't want to use it. Right.
Yeah.
True.
But this does prove that HP probably did not enforce the option where users have to change their passwords every, like, say 90 days. So
maybe not. I don't like that you just said it proves, because we don't know anything. I'm just going to put my legal disclaimer out there again. We're reading news articles. We're using our experience with what we see. And yeah, we can pick up on patterns where that's probably the case or potentially the case, just based on our own experience. So we do not know anything about HP. HP, please don't come sue us. All right, what else we got? I think it's Bryan. Are you up?
Well, one of the interesting thing is that there was actually a cybersecurity vendor, ThreatLocker. A lot of us are using ThreatLocker in our businesses. Great company to work with. They also indicated that multi-factor authentication was likely a factor in this case, and
Yeah, go sue them, not us.
Yeah, and then they also recommend that that be one of the main things that people do, is just enable that multi-factor authentication. It just demonstrates that even today there's some organizations out there that are still not enforcing that, but more importantly, just than enforcing it is reporting on it, right? If we can find, and my customers have us to watch over this, but a lot of MSPs are not monitoring 365, monitoring for things like 2FA being disabled on an individual account. That would flag something on our end, and we would be able to turn around and ping the client and be like, hey, you have a customer here or an employee here who doesn't have 2FA. So more important than just saying you have to have it, monitoring it and enforcing it are additional steps that you could take.
Okay. So it sounds like we're pivoting into how could it be prevented, what we learned from this. And yeah, that's a key one, right, is monitoring Office 365. Excuse me. Let's talk about more of the things that we've learned from this particular account or this attack, and or maybe just stuff it reminds us of from our daily lives. But Mario, what else can we do to prevent something like this?
Well, there are certain tools out there that, well, obviously there's the basics, right? Have a good password, have the password change, set up your multi-factor authentication, the 2FA, but all that is still not 100%. Like you can still crack 2FA and passwords and stuff like that, but you need to also have in place, you have to have, just like you monitoring your firewall and your computers and stuff like that, you need to monitor your 365. And there's companies out there that just strictly monitor your 365. There's programs, like something we use, we put in certain factors in place. If we see like a login for a user come from two different areas of the world, like New Jersey and then California within a few minutes, that we automatically geofence it and that it disconnects them. Obviously block out anything outside of the United States or Canada for all your users. There's certain things that you have to put in place, and unfortunately Microsoft does not enable a lot of this stuff out of the box. It's stuff that your IT professional needs to go in there and enable per customer.
Yep.
I mean, really, there needs to be a checklist. There needs to be, we call it internal standards, call it whatever you want, but there needs to be a process, a checklist, procedure, insert whatever word you want here, but it needs to be reviewed on a regular basis, and it's got to be somebody's primary job, and somebody has to be accountable for it. And that really is where a lot of times our clients or prospects fall short. And hell, a lot of times we see it in our industry, right? Where some IT companies, they get so overwhelmed with their day-to-day that this stuff falls through the cracks. So, we'll come back to it, but I'm going to put the plug in right now. Always get another set of eyes on it, right? If you think everything's locked down and solid, that's probably the worst scenario, right? Anytime you think you've got it figured out, God damn it, you don't. Get someone else to look at it. Do not get complacent. So, along with our Office 365, I don't see, well, this is kind of a frustration of mine. Clients frequently want to have the keys to the kingdom. And as IT providers, it's hard for us to say, no, you can't have that. But so many times, the CEOs, the executives of our clients want to have administrative rights to Office 365. So, how do you guys handle that?
Well, I can dive in here because I'm a big believer in this as well. We practice it within our own organization, and my message to all business owners is that we practice the principle of least. Oh my gosh, why has it gone blank now? Least access. Essentially, you're not special. You shouldn't have administrative privilege on your day-to-day account. You can have a second account that has administrative access. That's what we do. Like I have global administrative access to 365, but not on the account that I use on my phone, not on the account I use on my desktop, right? If I need to go do something within within our system, I log out and log in as the global administrator on a secure system that maybe is clean and not that my system isn't clean, but it's my day-to-day system. So you never know. We log into a clean system, verify that, do the activities we want to do, log out, and it has also two-factor authentication, and it is limited to either my office or a few very limited areas that we can log in from, right? It's not an account that you can log in from just anywhere in the world. In fact, I tried to access it from the US while I was on a conference a couple of months ago. I couldn't do it. But, right? Case in point,
that's what you do for you, but how do you handle when your clients come to you and say, Brian, I own this place. I want the administrative password, the credentials for Office 365.
Yeah, I say the same thing. I say, listen, we refuse to do it outright. Like we will not give a client administrative access. We've learned our lesson. A number of years ago, we had a client who had administrative access before our time. They came in as a client, and for whatever reason, we didn't recognize or realize that they had global administrative access. They got breached, and every single one of their employees were breached, but we were able to fix the breach on the primary account holder, not realizing that they had then gotten into all the other accounts and were able to worm their way in through there. So now we just we verified at some point in the past, all accounts don't have global administrative access. We went through and removed everybody's, even people who didn't respond to us, and we just said we're going to remove it, even if they don't want us to remove it. I took the heat on that, and then I just sat with the customers and said, we'll give you access, just not on your day-to-day account. We just can't have that as a risk factor, because listen, if a customer gets breached, just like people will blame the victim, they'll blame the customer. The media will then look at, well, who was the one who's responsible, air quotes, right? Responsible for that system. Oh, well, B4 Networks was the one handling the security there. And so, they're at fault, even though it wasn't us, right? Even though, maybe they're not even on a contract. Maybe they were just like, we fixed their computer one time, but like we're the ones who took it. So now we refuse to do any business with anybody who won't let us take care of security. And that's not because we don't like them. It's just we refuse to have that amount of risk for our business, and the clients that we work with understand that and appreciate that about us.
Well, this is one of those cases where you've got to have one throat to choke, right? If a client gets breached, I don't want them coming back on me, but that's better than having to sit there and figure out whose fault it was.
Mm-hmm. Right? I want to be responsible.
Right. Yeah. So I'm the same. If they insist on having that account, it comes with a letter, taking responsibility. A lot of times, I don't think I've actually done it. Maybe I have, but I will at least threaten to take the password and put it in a sealed envelope with, you know, my like LLC stamp on there and say, here it is. But if you get breached, you better be able to show me this sealed envelope that you didn't, you know, use this account. And then if you want to,
I
fine,
like
tear it
that.
open. But at that point, once you've opened it, it's on you. You know, just to make that point, to drive that point home, because they want it until they have to take responsibility along with it. Then all of a sudden, we're having a different conversation.
Well, one of the neat things we can do too is if a client wanted to have an administrative login, you can actually have any administrative logins, global admins that logged in, email a couple different people within the organization. So at least then you know that that account was accessed.
Right.
You know that somebody is now gotten into the account or has logged into the account and you can't, right? If you send it to an external address, there's nobody who's going to be able to go in and change the settings fast enough for that email not to go out. So
I agree with all that. I still like some
Yeah.
sort of a physical transfer of
Yeah.
responsibility. You know,
Fair
like
enough.
you take this from me and you understand what it means, but reach your
Yeah.
hand out and grab it. You know, like,
Yeah. And the thing is too, you have to find out why they want it, you know, and a lot of
Sure.
times, like we had a customer a few weeks ago that wanted administrative privileges, and we told her, I said the same thing like Bryan said, well, I will not give it to you on your own account, you know, that's licensed. We'll use a separate one, but why do you need it? And it turned out they just wanted to change some settings in Teams. And you can actually give them, you don't have to give them a global, you can actually just
right.
give them access to Teams.
Mhm.
You know, so you know, it's not, you know, because they, a lot of times these, you know, owners and stuff like that, they don't know what they're really asking for. They just want the overall information, but they're only using it for one little piece of the
Right.
puzzle.
They use the word
And
admin because they want to administer something, but they don't understand really what they're asking for. And Bryan, the term you're looking for is least privilege access,
Thank
right?
you.
That's what we do, right? If sure you want to have one function, here it is. You can have this one function, but what you cannot do is go in and reset people's passwords. You can't create new mailboxes. You can't upgrade privileges, you know, that kind of stuff. So
Because if you get breached at the end of the day, the criminal will have access to literally everything you have access to. And so that should be
Yeah.
as least amount of information as possible to contain and
Right.
keep that breach small. It's essentially what an incident response plan is, right? An incident response plan doesn't only come into effect upon an incident occurring. It's preventative. Look at all the things we can do. How could we get breached? How are we going to block those breaches? And how are we going to detect those breaches when they occur? And then what are we going to do about it after it occurs to contain it? And then how could we learn from those breaches? And then it starts back at the beginning, right? So it's an incident response plan is a constantly evolving document and process. And some of them require to have clients involved, like some aspect of it, and some of them we can do internally ourselves. But not having it is a dangerous thing.
Yeah, the incident response plan is crucial. Unfortunately, I think I would argue that most people don't have one. Most organizations, smaller, like our client base, they don't have it. If they do, it's because I gave it to them and it was a template, you know, that went on a shelf and is collecting dust. I was on a training session this morning with one of our vendors, and they were talking about not just having the incident response plan, and you kind of alluded to it, Bryan. He calls it a tabletop, and I guess I hadn't heard that. I always call it a fire drill or whatever. It's similar, you know, but where you actually run your response plan, you simulate an incident, and then you go and do the containment and like just try to learn and change and you know, modify, improve. But in a lot of cases, one of the points he made is that if you haven't done this, if you know, you file an insurance claim for cybersecurity, they're going to come back and ask you, first of all, you may not even get the policy without this, but let's say you have a policy and you get breached and you try to get it, you know, get the money for it. They can come back and say, well, let me look at your incident response plan and look at whether it's adequate or not. And then they can do a follow-up question of, how do you know it works? However, whatever they want to call it, you know, call it whatever, call it tabletop, call it fire drill, call it, you know, simulation, whatever. But they'll just say, how do you know this plan works? How do you know it's adequate? And a lot of times, you know, go check your policies, guys. But if you can't verify, if you don't have documented that you have the plan and that you know it works and you've tested it, they can deny claims.
Yeah, and listen, an incident response plan, like we as IT providers, MSPs, and I'm not trying to speak for the two of you, but we do internal incident response planning for what we control, right? We control the desktop, we control the servers, we
right.
control 365, and we can create incident response plans there. But if the client doesn't want to bother and involve themselves in the process, because I have situations where people just don't want to be like, Bryan, you supposed to take care of that.
Right.
But if I don't know you're using some particular third-party cloud application, that is now a vulnerability point. That is now an area where your company has risk, and we can't mitigate that risk because we don't know it exists, right? And so it's not just our responsibility; it's a joint responsibility to create an incident response plan. And every time you add a new product, a new service, a new tool to your business, that plan has to be revised. Okay, now we've got this new CRM system. How are we vulnerable here? Is there anything we can do to mitigate it? Is there anything we can do to catch criminals who have gotten in once they're in, so on and so forth?
Yeah, if I could add some too. So when I sit down with a lot of business owners and I explain to them that we need to put this in place, I tell them and this it is more for like male owners and stuff like that, because this happened to me. Essentially, this is imagine losing your wallet. Okay, I know that feeling. That's the worst feeling in the world, when you reach back there and you can't find your wallet. Essentially, you're panicking. You don't know what to do. So if something happens, you're in a panic. So to me, what I tell them, it's like going in there before you lose your wallet. You write down every credit card number information that you have, everything that's in your wallet. So when something happens, you know who to contact, what the number is, and how you can cancel it and fix the situation.
And in what
So,
order? Which one's
and in
most
what order?
important to go first?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
it's harder to do it after it happens. You want to prepare before it happens. And it's just like, if you were to lose your wallet.
Yeah, don't practice a fire drill while the building's burning down.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
bad
and
form.
essentially that's going back to what you said earlier, Justin. You want to put systems in place before as much as possible, because you don't want to be that low-hanging fruit on that tree. That's my saying. Like, I love that saying. You don't want to be the low-hanging fruit. It doesn't mean that somebody can't pick your fruit. They might break in, they might get to you. There's not a whole lot people can do when they're targeting you specifically. They'll find a way in, but we don't want to be the low-hanging fruit. We don't want to make it easy on them either. Because most breaches are breaches of opportunity versus people coming specifically after you. So.
Right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, there's a lull in the conversation. It's probably time to start winding this down. This was, like I said, a little bit interesting, a little bit different, because usually we're talking about massive financial loss, financial devastation. I think these guys got away with they got away easy. This could have been here's the thing, when somebody gets control of your email, God, it can be bad, because they basically own you. That's where a lot of the two-factor authentication that we constantly tell people to put into place, a lot of that happens through email, or you can reset it through email, So it's, this is a big deal. This is where, arguably most attacks happen through some version of email fraud, or email, what do they call it? Business email compromise, BEC attack. Phishing simulation, probably a really good thing to have in place. If your people are constantly used to watching, it's simulated, but they see these emails coming and they're watching for them. They get that habit of, is this real? Is it not real? If you can create that culture with your team, your staff, you're way ahead of the game. But if you just do an annual training, which is the minimum requirement, and then you expect, with all the other things that your people are doing nonstop, all day, every day, that they're also looking for phishing attacks, probably not. So, this ongoing training is really super important. And then we're going to wrap up with the way we always do, the actual audits, or, you can call it whatever you want, but it is a simulated attack where we go in and we run some very non-invasive applications that look for what a criminal would find if they did get through your security. And from there we can prepare a roadmap and at least point you in the right direction. Like I've said, you just have to have another set of eyes on. We all do, right? Anything you guys want to add about those simulated what do you call it? Mario, you've got a name for it that I like, but I always forget what it is. Mini pen test or something.
Security network assessment.
Mine's a
So-
vulnerability assessment.
Or mini pen
Okay.
test, yes.
Mini pen
Well,
test. I think you've used that before. But
Yeah.
penetration
I like
test,
vulnerability assessment because at the end of the day, it's what a criminal would have access to if they breached. If you clicked on a link, what will
Right.
they have access to once they got into your computer, and it scans out from there, right? And so
Right.
I like vulnerability because it's exactly that. You're vulnerable. It's not, for me, it's not a pen test, because a pen test is somebody actively trying to use
Right.
tools actively to try to breach your security versus
From the outside in.
right from the outside in. This is inside out. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of these attacks are happening all the time. So this is, it's not this is not an all-encompassing cybersecurity assessment or audit,
Yeah.
right? Those are tens of thousands of dollars, at least thousands. Like, there's so many different ways of going about it, but this will at least give us a place to start. Right, because Brian, you've used it, I use it all the time, the low-hanging fruit. That's what we're looking for. That's where we start. We start somewhere, we start simple. Let's get a few of these holes plugged, and then we can continue to improve over time, which really is the key, is constantly refining, reviewing, modifying, upgrading, right? This isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing. So
we sat with somebody yesterday, and we gave them the report, and we were able to tell them, like, listen, you're using these passwords on 18 different websites, and look how many and we actually found some of these passwords on the dark web, so it's educating the user, like, listen, we can't do anything about the dark web. It's there. The only thing you can do now is change these passwords.
Right.
And sometimes you just need to show somebody, like, this is what they can do with one click of the mouse, this is what they can get for you.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
That brings me to a really good quote from the former CEO of Intel, Andrew Grove. He said, success breeds complacency, complacency breeds failure, only the paranoid survive. In this case, success, right, that breeds your complacency is that you've never been hacked yet, right?
No
and
kidding.
so
Yeah.
right, that I really love that saying, because it really speaks volumes to this. Like, oh, I've never been hacked. Well, I've never gotten in a car crash, but I still wear my darn belt every day, right? You're not trying to protect against, you're protecting against the possibility of a car crash. And the same thing with cybersecurity, you're protecting against the possibility or the highly likelihood in this case of a cyber breach. So don't be complacent, folks.
Right. So again, guys, we all, the three of us, do have these assessments, or whatever we're going to call it, available for free. It is kind of a, an introductory assessment. We all have higher end paid assessments as well, but let's get started somewhere. Let's get some basic procedures, some documentation in place, an incident response plan, acceptable use policies. These are some of the foundational things that you need. We'll help you put some of the basic tools in place, two-factor authentication, that sort of thing. And then, if it looks like it's worth engaging from there, we can always talk about that as well. So let's wrap up with our website addresses. Mario, you want to head first, and then Brian?
Yeah, so once again, it's Mazteck, MAZTECK.com.
Right.
For me, it's Brian, B4 Networks. That's a letter B, number 4, networks with an S.ca.
That's a long address that you have to explain every time.
I know.
I got so mad. Quick story. My old address was master-computing.com, -, whatever. And I would tell people that, and they would type in MASTERDASHCOMPUTING.com. Like, Jesus.
Yikes.
So
I'm going to
one
fix
of the
that
main
for next
reasons I
week.
changed that address. And then now we've rebranded, and it is phoenixitadvisors.com. You can reach out to me. Any of us can give you that assessment. Again, the regions that we cover, I've got Texas and Nevada. Mario has Kentucky. What was it again? I'm just kidding.
New Jersey, New York.
And Brian's up north in Canada.
Ontario.
Toronto, right?
Ontario area. Yeah.
Okay. And if you guys are outside of that area, get a hold of any of us, and we can put you in contact with somebody who does something similar. So,
absolutely.
All right. Unless there's any last thoughts, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here.
Good to go.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. See you next week.
Bye-bye.